Good evening, Mr. Again, that's with prayer, please.
And Father, for you, and we're thankful for your goodness, your mercy, the way you watch over and protect us. We thank you for the rain that's blessing the ground. Father, we ask for your blessing on this meeting tonight. Give us wisdom and knowledge. Father, I also ask that you bless, have your face shine upon next Friday and Saturday, and give us good weather for graduation as we honor our seniors. So in Christ's name we pray, amen.
Amen. I'd like to call the Tuesday, May 19, 2020 school board meeting. Is there a motion to adopt the proposed agenda?
So moved.
Proper motion, second, in discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, let me know by raising your right hand. That's unanimous. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the minutes from May 5th, 2020 board meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Proper motion is second. All those in favor, let me know by raising your right hand. And that's
Can I say something before we do that?
yes.
There's a discussion about the minutes. And looking over the minutes, we had a board member that abstained from one of the votes. Okay, but if you read our minutes, there's nothing in there that would give anybody reading our minutes any indication to why he might have abstained. And I know I brought this up over a year ago, and I was asked sometime later that had we changed the way we're doing our meetings, we're okay with it. And I said yes, but probably I shouldn't have. But when you look at our minutes, there's no conversation that takes place. There's never no recording of any questions that's asked by a member. So therefore, it's just a motion was made, a second, and everybody approved of it. So it's like, I mean, perception is we just go along with anything. We ask no questions. Whatever is done, we just approve it. Now, that's just perception. We know different. But what I'm saying is, if you read our minutes from just this week, and that's the example. So I just wanted to point that out, with what's going on.
Okay. So within the minutes, it was mentioned that one of the board members abstained.
Correct.
With no comment behind his reason. Okay. And in the future, we want to put a comment there.
And I'm not saying you got to put a comment, he abstained because of this, but there's just no dialogue that took place that would let anybody know why that board member might not have voted.
I remember when we talked about this, several months ago, and Wendy and Mary Ann can correct me if I'm wrong. We asked our board attorney how detailed should we get in our minutes, and I think they're putting in the minutes based off the guidance from our board attorney. Am I right?
School Boards Association.
School Boards Association. So there's always a recording of the minutes if somebody wanted to listen to the recording. It's public record as well. We did check on that after it was brought up and was followed.
And I remember that comment, but in order to listen, they would have to come to the office. They'd have to request that. And there was one time on here when something come up and somebody came here and they requested for a lot of documentation. We would charge them because I think that was a special occasion. But if somebody come and ask now, they want to listen, there would be no charge for them to come or somebody, an employee, take their time, find what they were looking for, and let them listen to it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Commissioner, just to follow up on that, would it be possible, do we put in our minutes, I know we don't, could we put in the minutes that the full recording is available at such and such in the minutes so that people who read the minutes online can see that?
Mary Ann can check for us. I can't answer that question. I think it would be appropriate, but we'll follow up to make sure.
I think that one of the things Derek was implying is that the public thinks that we really just rubber stamp everything without any dialogue. So rather than putting the whole dialogue and why everybody abstains, could we put in the minutes, a motion was made, there was a dialogue concerning the motion, and then the motion was approved, unanimously or with one abstention, and just lets people know that it's just not approved rubber stamp, that there is a dialogue, not.
Yes, and I would think that as a board, we have the authority to do that. as relates to what Dr. Coffey said, just making a statement on any motion that we made in a brief sentence being placed there. And the rationale is that we have done it in the past, so I think that's what the board wants to do. And just a statement on what was discussed, not the whole dialogue, but I think we can do that. So, with that being said, then we want to be clear that one, Marion will look into it, and then secondly, what we'll say is that we will, in the future, when a motion is made, make at least a sentence and let them know what's the main point of the discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't going to speak tonight on this particular, since it was my abstention last time. If I gave a reason why, the reason is because executive session is no longer listed on the agenda, was not on the agenda at that particular time. The reason I gave may not have been, maybe I didn't explain it well, but I had, if the executive session is listed, and it's been listed for years, employment matters are broad. And with employment matters being broad, things could arrive within the 24-hour period, if we're going to have to notify media that what's on the agenda. And within that 24-hour period, something could happen that needs to be discussed in executive session, but if it's not on the agenda, you don't have the opportunity to discuss whatever that situation may be. Now, for years, like I mentioned last time, some have been here longer than I have. Obviously, a lot of people have been here longer than me, and then executive sessions have been listed. My understanding of executive session is it is listed. And then if you have matters to go into executive for, then you explain what those matters are to the public during the meeting. If you have executive session listed and there are no matters to discuss in the executive session, you simply, where on the agenda where our executive session, we have no matters to discuss tonight, is there a motion to move on to dismissal or adjournment? Now, the way I have seen it, since I've been on the board, and I'm not going to go back to anybody else, but executive session has been listed with employment matters, and then you as chairman would say what these employment matters involve: resignations, transfers, hires, or employment in general. And then even if you had legal matters, you may list executive session for employment matters, legal matters, contract matters, and so forth. If there is none, then you simply skip over executive session. But if something came up catastrophic for us within that dead time of 24 hours, we may need to discuss it instead of having to try to call a special call meeting. Because if it's not on the agenda, you can't go there. That's why my point, that was what I was trying to make. Not that I was trying to be difficult to get along with or whatever. My point is, the executive session can be listed, whether it's used or not. If it's needed, it's there. If it's not used, if it's not needed, then you simply dismiss and move on or adjourn. So I could walk up to you, if it's listed, I could walk up to you at 5 minutes till and say, I have an employment matter that I'd like to discuss tonight. That covers it, this problem. It can involve a lot of things. So I wanted to clarify that a little bit, since my abstention from last time was really part of the reason for what was discussed tonight, okay? So that's why I feel like the executive session can always be added. It's like public forum. We're not gonna have a public forum tonight. I realize that. But if we have public forum, when we go back to normal, we have public forum whether anybody signs up or not. if nobody signs up for public forum, we simply move on. Don't we? I believe we do, because nobody's speaking, but we have something that comes up. That's what I was trying to explain. And I hope I'm a little bit clearer tonight. So, the reason I abstain, and I will say this, if executive session, and I'll make it clear tonight, and everybody can think what they want to about what I have to say. But if the executive session is not at least listed, I will abstain next time. Not because I'm difficult to get along with. I think it's important to have it because that dead period, a 24-hour period for the media to get a hold of, some things could happen. We need it. And that's why. If you don't need it, you simply move on to the next part of the agenda. So I'm hoping I'm clear. I said that.
Okay, yes, Coach, you're clear, and I think, what we started in this conversation prior to adopting the consent agenda is that Mr. Proctor made it clear that we need to abbreviate in the discussions that we have.
And let me make one last statement, please. Executive session matters. Executive session. You then state the day of the board meeting, the night of the board meeting, why we're going into executive session. I don't believe you have to state why you put executive session. Employment matters. That covers a lot of area, but you read out. You've done it every time. You read out why we're going into executive session each and every board meeting and every night. Therefore, the public knows why we're going into executive session. So that's when the executive session rule comes into effect, is when you read out why we're going in there. But I believe it can be on the agenda, just like public forum could be on the agenda, but we don't, during regular session, this is a little different time now. But with this stuff going around, but we always list public forum, because we always have a session for the public to have an opportunity to talk. But executive session is not there and something comes up, I don't have an opportunity, or anyone else will have an opportunity to ask a question. That's my point. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Okay, are there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to ask for a motion again to approve the consent agenda for the minutes of May 5th, 2020 board minute meeting with the notations that have been made stated.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Proper motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor, let me know by raising your right hand. And it is done. Okay, moving on down, acknowledgement. We have a few of our hard-working staff members here. Good to see y'all here. We've been meeting with just one, so thanks for all that you do on behalf of the board. I'm going to get down to the chairman's report.
Can I pause you? Under acknowledgements, I thought this would be a good time, if you advance the slide, to show the board and the people that are watching via live chat or live stream how we are providing speech and language pathology services in our e-learning environment during the school closure. It's a interview that was done with our school district, and I think it demonstrates really nicely how we're doing and trying to accommodate these needs.
So today we're going to be working on analogies, and we're going to start off with creating a bridge sentence.
Newspaper is to inform.
Yes, very good.
And a game is to entertain.
Yes, a game is to entertain. It is awesome so far. You guys are good ones.
Kershaw County is a really dynamic school district. We have 3 high schools, 4 middle schools, and 12 elementary schools. We're working with students with significant cognitive disabilities and students with mild disabilities in various settings within the school.
We definitely have a shortage of speech pathologists in our area.
we had to struggle getting anyone out here. That's why presence learning is so great for us, because we don't have to have someone here in person. They can actually work with our students online.
I said, what is happening online? They told me like, the speech therapy. I said, no, it's not. And I was like, this is really crazy. They're doing this online with this population.
Skeptical would probably be an understatement. I was like, there's no way this is gonna work. I felt like they needed that one-on-one in-person therapy. Like they weren't gonna be able to relate to someone over the computer. But I was very wrong about that.
All this way.
Yes, ma'am.
You're all set. All right, here we go. Where do you put these?
Shoes
Good.
go on the feet.
Presence learning doesn't try to displace a speech language pathologist existing in your district. What they try to do is come in and enhance what you're doing and help you to identify your needs and your shortages. So for them to come in and do that is extremely non-threatening and very helpful to our speech pathologists.
Presence learning does all the work for us. They recruit the best of the best therapists. We're getting the best quality therapists for our students. It's been amazing to watch them build relationships over the computer as opposed to in person. I think one of the advantages of teletherapy is actually that when a parent calls in or we have an IEP meeting and we're going over the progress of what the student is doing in the special education classroom and in their speech language services, we have more access to the reports than we did when we actually had in-person therapists in the building.
One of the great things that's happened using teletherapy is that because of the continuity of the services, we've made a lot of progress with students.
One of the powerful things is that parents can actually log in and see their child receiving speech therapy. They're able to actually go in and take a look and see the therapist working with their child.
One of my teachers shared that one student in fact spoke for the first time.
Like, just for you to see a student just as simple as hi, that changed the day. Like, because before it was nothing, like just a smile. And then now it's a hi.
Parents really have become believers of teletherapy because they've really seen that not only are their students making progress in the classroom, but also they're taking these skills that they're learning out into the real world and becoming productive citizens.
Also, part of the South Carolina School Board Association as well as that for the arts for the 2020 graduates. You're the reason that we serve. And after the meeting, so we'll have everyone to sign this, please. Okay. Dr. Robbins.
Okay, tonight for the superintendent's report, I got a list of items for you. The first one is our continuing resolution and our budget for one. I just emailed you a copy so you can look through it. This is just for information only tonight. I'm going to come to you at our next board meeting and ask for approval. In essence, it's just a complete replica of the 1920 budget. It's the same thing that the state has done. I'm sure you guys are all following the continuing resolutions. I believe the county council just adopted a continuing resolution budget last night in their meeting. So the expenditures and line items are identical from last year. So the one thing I did not put in here, and I apologize, I did want to show it to you tonight, but I will send out to you tomorrow, is our cash flow spreadsheet, the one pager that gives you an idea of where we're forecasting that we will end the end of the year. And right now our revenues are still the same. We haven't received a cut from the state. And so we're still forecasting a surplus at the end of the year. However, I've been talking to Mr. Hopkins and some other folks. We will still look at ways that we can reduce expenditures because, you know, we've received stimulus money and we know how this works. Most of us have been around long enough that we saw what happened when we received stimulus money. in 2008. They'll find a way to cut you in the future to get that money and recoup it back. And so we want to be ahead of the game and not have to react to that. I will share publicly and with the board, for 2 years since I've been here, we've talked about this, and that is, this is why it's so important to have a cash balance. And right now we're 16% or so forecasting. We may end the year at 17% cash balance. The goal is 16.67%, which is 2 full months of expenditures. So we are there. If we do start to lose money, if we're smart in what we're doing in terms of our spending habits, and we have this cash balance, then we think we're going to be just fine. We do have the CARES Act money. For us is a little over $2 million that's supposed to support school districts in this time frame. And then we have 2 other things that I continue to talk about that's going to be beneficial to us. One is a green project that's very extensive across the district to help us reduce our operational expenses with the new HVAC systems, the new LED lighting that's going in multiple sites. And then the final one is when we do close the inefficient 3 small schools and open the new school. That's going to save us operational expenses as well. So all those things together create a good picture for us in the future, regardless of what happens if we lose financial revenue from the state and the federal government. Did you want to add anything to that, Donnie?
No, except just to remind the board that the General Assembly will reconvene in September, which is very odd. You know, they don't ever do that, but they're coming back in September. And we're hopeful at that point in time, of course, they'll have brand new revenue projections again. They will pass a state budget then that will be different than what it is right now. And when that occurs, then we'll respond accordingly. So we'll be bringing another, like I guess you would call it it's not really a budget amendment because all we're doing is just maintaining where we are right now, but it will be a budget, but it will be at an odd time, September, October time.
This just allows us to pay bills right now, continue on. The other piece that I want you to, because I think you can articulate it much better than me, with the whole penny sales tax, I've heard that question. We know that a lot of businesses were closed down, so sales in the county are going to be a little lower, and what's that do for us? I have a general idea how to explain that, but I know Donnie can explain it much better. So you want to explain that piece?
Yeah, part of the financing arrangement we did, for the new elementary school, basically allowed us to freeze all the money that's in that fund for the penny sales tax for almost 3 years, 2.5 years, where we will not need to use any of that money. So it's just going to accumulate. And that's different than what the original plan was before we did the elementary school, because we were going to use that to pay down the debt. Well, now we're not going to have to, because we're doing that short-term bond in order to build the school. So everything just rocks along just like it is. The millage rate doesn't go up, doesn't change to pay for the debt, but it's just sitting there and accumulating for 2.5 years or so. So even though the monthly revenue, we are sure is going to be down because sales are down all across the state, it's not going to impact us negatively at all. So, it was a long time ago when we had that discussion on how we were going to finance the new elementary school. But that is one thing, if you go back and look, that is one thing we did talk about. The sales tax would just accumulate. So it'll be down for a little while, but it'll come back as the economy comes back. We got plenty of time.
Happy to answer any questions. I know it's kind of a quick flyover, but.
I just wanted to follow up something we talked about last time. I know you have a lot of moving parts right now, but knowing that there could be a funding decrease or whatever, and looking at efficient ways is now a good time to take steps to look at the solar project. The 3 big high schools in the park we cover, especially with whether we're going back or when we're going back in the summertime is now a good time to start looking at the project.
That's good, and I'm glad you brought that up, and it gives me a chance to kind of share with the board what happened with that. We had made a lot of progress, and we were about ready to sign, seal, and deliver this to move forward pretty aggressively. And I spoke to a person in the state who works in that line of work, and I got a little stage fright, I guess is the best way to describe it, on the funding mechanism and whether we were going to be exposed, because the original proposal was we weren't going to be exposed and have to come up with the capital up front. And then it was kind of turning in a different direction where we would market this to banks and foot some of the bill up front. And so I pulled us out of that and just paused us. Of course, then you know what happened in January. And so, but you're right, it's a good time to take another look and continue to see if we can find ways to reduce operational expenditures. That's what happened.
Donnie, why did you say we're not having to, it's in a holding pattern for 3 years? Did I understand you say it's because we're building the other elementary school at North Central area?
It's the way that we're financing the other elementary school.
So
We're doing a shorter, like a 2-year bond deal to pay for that school. The money that's coming in from our tax rates, our local taxes, is going to be used to pay all existing debt. The premiums that we got when we sold the bond originally 3 years ago for phase 2, the premium is going to actually go to pay back the short-term bonds. So in the meantime, we don't need the sales tax revenue to pay that debt.
Okay, the reason I just wanted to make sure I understood, because we elaborated over and over that school had nothing to do with the first referendum.
That's correct.
So when you mention that, I just want to make sure it's still clear. Even though you said that,
Yeah.
it's still different. It's just the way the borrowing was set up and the payback.
Exactly.
Okay.
But and your statement that you just made and reiterated is still absolutely the case. That is the way it was set up. The good byproduct of that is we don't need the sales tax dollars while we're doing this. So we're not going to have to use them to accumulate them. Okay. It could not have, if I had written a script, it couldn't have been any better than the way this has turned out because of what's happened in our economy right now.
Can I ask, with our budget still being good, because we've talked about that 8 years I've been on building that fund, making sure we had money in our fund. And with our budget as strong as it is, I understand we've got a freeze on spending, or so I'm hearing. But I'm a little confused why we would do that if we have classrooms and teachers needing to prepare for next year, and that's something they've always done. Why we're not letting them get supplies if we have what we need, at least get supplies that they're ready to start off, because some of these people work on that over the summer. And if they come back at the first of the year, I mean, they're behind already.
They will still do that over the summer, but they will do it in July and August. Okay. Now, what's going to happen when he sends you that cash flow sheet, the numbers and the way we're going to end up the year, the way it looks right now, we still got a whole lot of work to do before we get to the end of June and actually into September before we close the books. But we're going to add more to the reserve fund this year by the time we close out than what I was projecting. And why is that? It's because the revenue is still coming in at the same level. And we have stopped all spending. Why did we do that? When I say all spending, that is not totally true. We are still spending money, but it's on an as-needed basis. You think about the supplies they already had for this semester, and then we stop school March 13th. If they're in dire need of supplies, they're going to get them, okay? But they got a stockpile of supplies that they did not use this semester.
But I understand that, but please understand, I work with I live with okay? I see so at the beginning of the year, so unless you're asking them to start off at the end of this year, because supplies is one thing versus what you start off teaching with A, B, C, D, and you got all these cutouts that is brought home to do. And if they can't do that, and that's where they're going to start instead of starting, okay, we want y'all to start in February or March where you left off and pick up August later in the year.
They will have the instructional supplies they need when school starts.
I want to make 2 points. All right. The first point is this is such a fluid environment right now that we're doing what we're doing so we can close books out, right? The second point is We don't even know what the fall is going to look like yet.
Right.
And so they need to be just as flexible as we have to be at our level planning for the start of the school year. So we've got a good solid 12 weeks while the Accelerate Ed Committee and Task Force is discussing what the start of the school year looks like before we get too awful concerned about what are our needs, what have we not ordered. You know, we need to see what the way ahead is. What if we don't come back to school until November?
Right.
You know, and so we all these things are pieces to a puzzle that we are very aware of, and we are not going to let anybody not have the materials they need to start the school year. We simply close out at the end of every school year, just like we did. We cut off POs at a certain time as we get ready to go into the summer, and then we open those POs back up when we're getting ready to start a new school year. That part has not changed. That is real typical. It's just they're at home right now when we're cutting them off, but it's May, and in our minds, we're closing out a school year. Does that make sense? It's really not that different.
It really isn't that much different. As a matter of fact, I think we just sent the email out last Friday that was the last day for POs. That is the normal time that we do it every year. Now, I want to go back to the fact that I said we're going to add more to the reserves than what I was originally predicting, because there's a lot of expenditures we're not incurring right now with the kids not there and people at home. Now, why is that important? It's for the same reason that he indicated a minute ago, and you all know we've been preaching it. You said it. We need to build a reserve fund. Well, we're going to add what we don't need to spend right now to the reserves, because we know we are not going to have the same level of revenue next year. We know it. So when we bring you that revised budget, it's going to include, in September, October, whenever it is, it's going to include spending some of that reserve. That's why we need to put as much in there now, right now, as we can.
Now, I want to give you guys a little bit of a warm fuzzy, and I'll send this to you because for me, I'm very much visual versus hearing it. But let's go all the way back to 2008 and 2009, because I've got it pulled up right in front of me. Our cash reserve minus 104,000. The next year we were up to $1 million. The next year, 6 million. The next year, 7 million. The next year, 8 million. The next year we only went up about 100 grand. 9 million, 10 million, 11.4 million, 12.3 million, 14.1 million. And we're really thinking we're going to be close to 16 million because we've spent almost 6 months with all of our buildings in an unoccupied status. And if you ever look at our utility bills, you know that's a huge savings, okay? Now, 16 million sounds like an awful lot, but remember, we're on a $126 million overall budget and a $90 million general fund budget. So that is right in line where we should be. And it set us up to be able to do the things that you're asking about without much worry. It's there to dive into if we need to when times get bad, but it's just a cushion. So that should make you feel good about financially what this district has done over the last 10 years. Good. Okay. Thank you. Those are great questions. Appreciate it. The next piece on my report tonight is just our COVID-19 update and just some bullet items. And if you scroll through in your PowerPoints, you've got it right in front of you so you can see what I'm going to talk about. But meals served, I've been tracking this every week with Dr. Lawyer, and we're up to 335,348 meals served to the children in Kershaw County since our school closure. I just think that's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. To some capacity, like I shared with you at our last meeting, there's still going to be food service at least partway through the summer. We're still working with the State Department on what that's going to look like, whether it's going to be with the United Way, but it looks like the USDA is going to open this up and give us more flexibility. They know that because a lot of people are out of work that wouldn't typically be out of work, they want to be able to provide meals to children. So that's going to look a little differently this summer. We started Monday a phased reopening of our schools. So all of our schools now are open to some capacity every day, not just the food service sites. All employees are following the same protocols. They check in We have non-contact thermometers for every location. They take their temperature, they sanitize their hands, they put on a face mask and log in, and then they move about into their rooms. Right now, most of our principals have scheduled with their teachers and their staff about a third occupancy of their staff just to maintain good social distancing. So, and we'll continue to open that up a little bit more and a little bit more. And our front offices, we have our curbside drop-offs for our students. They'll start next week. Concluding the academic year, just so y'all know, this week is an instructional week. Next week will be another wave week. Report cards are going out on May 29th. This year, we're going to deliver them via email, or parents can go into the Power School Parent Portal and access the report cards. And then seniors' final assignments were last Friday, and then they have this week through the 19th to get them completed so we can get them into the system by May 22nd.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
You good? No, it's fine.
So this week's the e-learning week.
Yes.
And yet we got schools taking up computers on Friday. I was wondering, why are we doing that if this is an e-learning and they're asking them to turn computers in Friday?
So Friday will be the last instructional day, and then the following week is a wave week. If you've got children who haven't gotten their work done on Friday, they can turn their computers in. If not, if they need to continue work, they can keep them and they can schedule another time to turn them in. Because the following week is a wave week, which is, just to give an extra bit of time for kids. Face-to-face programs have been canceled for this summer. That's per the State Department. And then this last piece, I just want to spend a couple seconds on, and please ask questions if you have any. But I got a good email from Matt today, and it kind of addresses that, and that is the fall. And the fall is a very unknown at this point. And in South Carolina and across the country, there are task forces that have been put together to look at what does the opening of schools look like in the fall. And so everything is on the table right now. Do we go alternating grade levels? Do we go alternating days? Do we go alternating weeks? They're talking about a variety of things. And here's the issue. If you ask us to try to socially distance in an elementary school, it is not going to happen. I mean, you've got recess requirements. You've got, the cafeteria we could get by with because we can feed them in their classrooms. But you look up Elgin High School that has 1,700 students, and you look at passing periods. And so there's just right now a lot of discussion, and there are no answers. But you got to start somewhere, right? And so what I'll do, and what my pledge is, and I've tried to do that since it started, is to keep our community involved and in the know about what's taking place at the state level. Some of this will be out of our control. Some of it's going to rely on you to make a decision based on our recommendations on what we do at the local level, because ultimately it's a local decision, but there are still could be state guidelines that mandate and dictate what those decisions look like. So I did participate in a town hall. A lot of those questions came up. I participated in with the two Richland superintendents, and everybody has the same questions as our community. We just don't have any answers yet.
With no disrespect to those in Columbia, do you really think that you'll have the opportunity to tell your employees before it goes on the news and they blurt it out? You don't have to have
no comment.
I'm
live streaming tonight.
Rob, just a couple of questions if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Really, it's about sports, because people are asking that. It's my understanding that statewide, all school sports are canceled for the rest of the year, correct? Or is there some schools?
No, statewide, the high school league canceled sports for the remainder.
So it's the high school, so we don't have the parameters, you don't have parameters to open up for. Okay.
Yes.
And it will be the high school league, they'll do the same thing in the fall too. Now, and they're subject to Department of Education, right? Okay. So that's really out of our hands.
They're subject to the Department of Education and the General Assembly.
Okay.
So.
What if parents or student athletes, no coaches involved, wanted to use our fields? Is that allowed?
Not at this time. And we had all of our facilities locked down 100% until Monday. And on Monday, it's this progressive reopening, this phased reopening, and we did it very controlled. And we're not even allowing parents on our campuses into the instructional building yet. Now, I will tell you, there's been discussion that potentially July 1st, the high school league would open up and say, okay, now you can have contact. The reason I say no to parents without coaches involved is because this is still a school facility and we're still responsible. We still have all the liability of anybody who comes on those facilities. We can't waive that. So we can't put our head in the sand and say, yeah, it's okay. You know, Shane can bring his son and a few other kids out to the field and, you know, get some work in. We can't do that. Any other questions? So more to follow on that. It's just where we are as a country, unfortunately. The next item I have tonight on my report, and I want to do this once a month for you guys, and that's the tornado response update for the high school. So as you recall, there are 3 phases to this. Phase 1 is the outdoor athletic facilities. Right now, the scoreboard is about 75% complete. We'll be up and running for graduation. The home stadium bleachers, the footers are being poured as we speak. And contrary to what I had mentioned, I think, Coach, the last meeting, they will be done for the start of the football season. So my dates were just offset on when our first home football game was. They'll be complete by the first home football game. And honestly, they're a little bit ahead of the game right now, pouring the footers and the structural steel starting to show up. So that's a good thing. The foundation for the baseball and softball dugouts are being formed, and the new ticket booth foundation has been dug and scheduled to be formed later this week. So the outdoor facilities are moving along quite nicely. And again, they're scheduled to be done before the start of the fall. Let's just say it was the normal fall. They'll be done. Phase 2 is the wellness center and the gymnasium. Again, remember, we have a lot of roof work taking place in those rooftop HVAC units that were tossed all around. Those 2 facilities are scheduled to be complete by September as well. The HVAC units are ordered and on their way, and they will be complete. The roof will be complete before the HVAC installation. Let me take that back. The roof and the HVAC installation will be complete before the gym floor installation can take place, because you got to climatize the facility before you put that wood floor in.
While we're talking about that, I know this is not on graduation yet, but so with all the fencing for parking for graduation, is that going to be?
So they're moving fencing to meet our arrangements for parking and there's going to be basically 2 ways to come in. There's going to be the school side, and there will be where I guess what I would say would probably be your visitors, in between the middle school and the facility side parking area. So you have 2 ways to come in. The fencing, they're moving around. Some of it's already been removed, and we moved it such so that we can have the outdoor parking, and we could only do it this year because the home stadium's gone. If the home stadium's there, it blocked the view, and so we're going to pull cars in that little embankment and park cars there. So the fencing will be in good shape. It won't be the new fencing, but some of the temporary fencing is such that it gives us space and visibility. Okay, phase 3 is the one that we're fighting on. That's the instructional building, and there has been some positive things that have taken place since our last meeting, and that is they have confirmed that we will use the 2018 IBC for rebuild, which is the International Building Code. That was our first contention. They're still working with the structural engineers and the insurer on the scope of the project. And basically what they're doing is, and we're on conference calls once a week with them. They're looking at what's the cost to tear everything down, rebuild it. What's the cost to build it to code and not destroy or not demolition of the whole facility. So they'll put the numbers in there and they'll crunch them out, and then they'll have a recommendation. We're still feeling pretty confident we're going to get what we want. So, but I can't tell you that's the case yet. It's not 100% sure, but every week we're on those calls, and we're making progress, aren't we, Donnie?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
happy to answer any questions on that piece of it.
I want to ask a question, please, on the outdoor facilities such as softball, baseball, dugouts, and so forth. Input for these dugouts, I assume fencing and so forth, backstops, so forth. The input from the ADs was they collected from the coaches to provide to the ADs to provide to Billy. Was that the process? Because the reason I'm asking the question, a lot of times the coaches, we just build things, and some coaches may like to have some things done this way because they do the job. Okay, they're actually doing the work. So did we involve Billy, or maybe y'all?
I was looking at Billy because I wanted him to answer your question.
People have asked me about should they be involved because they wanted some things.
Yes, and the baseball coach, athletic director, and the principal were all involved. I don't know about the softball coach. I cannot tell you about that. One of the things we're running up against is that the things they want and the things that I know would be good things to do cost a whole lot more than what the replacement cost the insurance company is going to give us. And the last thing we want is project creep, that we get the general contractor and subs to do a bunch of stuff that the insurance company won't pay for. It will be done right. We have been able to move and do some things with the dugouts and the backstop that they asked for. Yes, sir.
Okay.
To answer your question, they have been involved, and we are being able to do some, not all of the things.
Some of the coaches, that sometimes they feel like they're left out of the.
I have made sure.
I'm not blaming you. That's not my point. I'm not blaming you.
Oh no.
I'm just saying someone would be asking them how you want this done, because dugouts, the in-ground dugouts and just regular dugouts, and then plus you got storage buildings. Would all of that be included?
Everything that was destroyed, square footage size, we're included in that. We're trying to mold that to what they want, but we have to stay within those parameters of the square.
The guidelines of the money.
So some things will change. They will change and will be better, but we have to stay in the parameters of what the insurance company saw that was there and what they're allowing us to do.
So there could be some good changes that be up to not only code, but up to new facilities we use today, not like those stuff I use.
Yes, sir. Exactly. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Any questions on where we are on the response there? Again, we're looking at 24 months, unfortunately, on this. So, but we'll keep plugging. Okay, the next thing I have, I'm going to go through this quick because probably fed you this more than you really want to hear, but I wanted to do it publicly, just a graduation update. Again, here's just the basic pieces to this. Each senior is going to be allowed 4 guests. Each entry point will have the following workers in place. We'll have a school resource officer, a school nurse conducting tip checks, a staff member that's going to sanitize hands so people don't have to touch the bottle. They'll spray their hands on the way in so they can sanitize their hands. And we'll also have staff members ushering to the seats. If not, we'll have people, spattered everywhere, and we've got to do it very organized because of our limited seating. Handicap seating will be in place at each one of the locations. It's a little bit different, and when I go through the sites, I'll explain where we foresee it being at each place. Overflow seating, we talked about the drive-in potential. That's going to vary at each location as well, and I'll explain that. And then we'll also have hand sanitizing stations outside of each of one of the restroom locations that people have to get up and use the restroom during the ceremony. First up, North Central High School starts at 7:30, Friday, May 29th. Handicapped parking, we're still working on that. Dave, you'll send out a message to see who requires it, and we'll get them up as close to the stadium as possible. The handicap seating, because we only have one set of bleachers and it's the smaller set, is going to be out on the track. So we'll bring them in on the track and seat them. VIP seating will be up next to the stage. So we'll have faculty and staff on one side of the stage, and we'll have VIP seating on the other side of the stage, and the board members will be included in Any questions on North Central? We do have a special guest that'll be coming, but we'll wait for an announcement and put it out. I kind of shared it a little bit. I'll tell you afterwards. I just don't want to do it publicly yet. Camden High School is a Saturday morning at 8:30, and the handicap parking will be the parking that is part of Rame Arena. So the closest to the stadium will be all handicap parking. Handicap seating is built into both sides of those stadiums. So we think we'll have plenty of handicap seating. If we need to go down on the ground with additional handicap seating, we will. The VIP seating at the Camden High School graduation will be the yellow or the gold seats that are the booster club seats in the stadium. Those will be the VIP seats. And then the board members, you just need to let me know, Dr. Copley, what you would like to do, and we'll be down on the stage with the administration. Now, for Camden High School, the overflow site, let me backtrack. North Central is not going to have an overflow site. It's going to be right out on the site in that embankment. You'll have cars pull in and they can watch the ceremony from that location. At Camden High School, because of our limited parking, I'm talking to Mrs. Corner, we're going to set up the gymnasium, which is where they usually have graduation. We'll have sound system in there, and we'll have a big screen set up. So if people want to go in because they either, one, don't have good connectivity at home, or they want to watch the ceremony on a big screen, then we'll allow them to come there, and we'll have it set up and staffed as well. And that's how we're going to do it at Camden High School.
So we have changed and it's not parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Parking's just a premium, and it was just going to make it difficult. So, Lugoff Elgin High School is at 9:45 on Saturday morning, and the handicap parking, we're still working on that a little bit. We think what we're going to do is use the Booster Club parking spots that are right behind the stadium inside that gate, and we'll make that handicap parking. The handicap seating is built into the smaller sections of the temporary bleachers, but we're also going to put them out on the track. The VIP seating will be out on the field next to the stadium, and then we'll have the board members out there as well. Now, the overflow site for Lugoff Elgin High School is going to be at the middle school. It'll be back behind the middle school. It's going to be very restrictive again because parking is such a premium and it's a bigger graduation ceremony. So it'll be a sign up to see how many people are interested. Again, we'll have a sound system set up, and we'll have screens where we will live cast the ceremony so people can watch it and listen if they choose. And that's all I have, pending anybody's questions.
I just have a comment. I know that 4 guests doesn't seem, it's not enough, but I have an nephew graduating from Lancaster County, and they can only have 2 guests. So I think our graduates get at least 4.
But didn't the governor come back and say they could do 4? Or was that left up to the district?
It's left up to the district. Yeah. It's a challenge. We've walked those stadiums probably 6 times, measuring, trying to fit them in. And, North Central's challenge is they only have 1 set of bleachers, so there's a challenge there. And Lugoff Elgin has 370 students graduating, 4 times 370, they're going to be on the field. They're going to be, so there were some logistical challenges, but we're going to make it work. I will say this, the Sheriff's Department's been amazing to work with to provide us with some help. This Friday, we're going to have a safety meeting with our corporation nurse, our safety director, representatives from the Sheriff's Department, the Camden Police Department, Mr. Smith and myself, to go through and make sure that our plan is in place and we're ready to go with all the PPE that's going to be needed and just the organization. So we feel good that it's going to go well.
I'd like to make one last comment. The school board really looks good. I rode by Saturday, and they're working hard on the field. Looks to me, appears to me.
Yes, sir.
The scoreboard looks nice, and I think it's going to really be nice when they finish with it. So I'm hoping that thing will be there.
I promise, Coach. It will.
Lugoff Elgin High School scoreboard from 1940. It looks good too.
It's not fair. It's not fair.
You know, I do want to add something. All joking aside, I met with Mr. Campbell, and there's going to be a fresh set of paint on the blue parts of that stadium, and then he's putting the bleacher blankets up to clean up the stadium itself. We tore down that old barn. It's going to look really nice come graduation day.
Derek wore it out when he played. That's why we need one.
All right, Mr. Chair, that's all I got.
Is there anything else for the good? If not, is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss resignation and retirement of certified and classified personnel?
So moved.
Second.
I haven't completed the motion. Personnel, assignment changes and transfer of certified and classified personnel.
So moved, then you finish. So moved.
Motion, second. Second. Is there any discussion?
Just glad it's on the agenda for coach.
All those in favor, let me know by raise your right hand. And that's unanimous.
You have to say that right.
I'm sorry.
I think.
We're getting cleaned up and ready anyway.
Having to get up.
I know.
We got him at his house.
Something else?
Probably mistake.
Yeah.
Don't say that, let's just go.
Sure. No, you want to paint that thing? I said, yeah, no paint on that thing.
Do you have a list you could send me of the retirees and what school they retired from?
Executive retirement ceremony. I think I Thursday on this.
Oh, once you back off from the computer.
I don't want to unplug everything yet because we've got to come back out legally.
So right here,
I just need
I
to
did
take-
the microphone. You just take this last one off right here. Yep, and it slides right back in. Okay.